Am I the jerk for telling my kid's babysitter that it was inappropriate of her to shower in my home? I hired a babysitter for my 5 and 3-year-old kids 2 weeks ago. My husband works shifts while I work long hours at a marketing company. So far, we've had no issues until yesterday. I came home at 6 p.m. and noticed the babysitter's wet hair and new clothes. She told me she took a shower after one of the kids spilled milk on her. I was confused but visibly upset, but she tried to reassure me the kids were fine because my husband watched them while she took her shower, which only lasted for a few minutes. I was more confused that my husband was home when he had a shift to cover. I told her I didn't think it was appropriate of her to shower in my home like that. She argued that it was fine and that she had no choice and couldn't leave the milk on her like that. We argued, and my husband heard the commotion and got involved. He said it wasn't as big of a deal as I was making it out to be, but I told the babysitter that I did not appreciate how she basically ignored how I felt about this and dismissed my feelings. She went home, but we still argued on the phone. She thinks she's done nothing wrong and said that I was being unfair when I mentioned potentially cutting from her salary after that. My husband keeps saying that I'm overreacting and the poor girl couldn't handle having milk stains on her body and clothes, but I couldn't help feel it was inappropriate and she should have checked with me. So, am I the jerk for my reaction? Alright, very interesting start to this episode. I'm not quite sure what is going on here, to be honest. I have no idea who's really in the wrong. It's just an interesting post. Maybe I'm reaching slightly here, guys, but I feel like this isn't even an am I the jerk situation. It's more a is your babysitter sleeping with your husband behind your back kind of question. Now, look, maybe that's a bit too far, but you tell me. What do you reckon? Am I the jerk for cancelling a check of $12,000 that I wrote for my infertile friend for her next IVF cycle over a joke? I am a 35-year-old woman and I'm infertile. My ex-husband and I tried everything to have kids, but it just never happened. He divorced me, went and married someone younger who was able to give him a kid, and from what I gather, they're expecting a second child together. It hurts like hell seeing someone else have what I couldn't. I get frustrated with myself sometimes, and with family blaming me for basically everything. I turn to my friends for support. Especially Alessia. She's in the same infertility boat as me, but she and her husband are currently trying IVF, hoping it would work. Alessia asked me for help to pay for her upcoming IVF cycle. I agreed to write her a check of $12,000. I really wanted to help her and the money came with no strings attached. I wrote the check and gave it to her last week. She was very appreciative of it. The very next day, I got a sudden message from a mutual friend, Carol, with a screenshot of the conversation she had with Alessia. It turns out she and Alessia were talking about the next IVF cycle, and Alessia said she hoped the cycle would work because she didn't want to end up divorced and having her husband go marry someone younger and have a baby with them and another one on the way. All the while, she's alone and without a family at 35. For context, Alessia is 32. I was stunned and hurt. I knew she meant me here, but I did not confront her. I simply contacted my bank and cancelled the check. In the evening, Alessia called to ask why I cancelled the check, and I told her. She went mental, saying she didn't mean it that way and that she thought that this was somewhat an inside joke between desperate infertile women. She came over with her husband the next day, begging I write another check, but I refused. An argument ensued and her husband thought I wasn't being supportive of her like when she supported me throughout my struggles. She left crying and we haven't talked since then. Her husband keeps reminding me, while repeatedly calling Carol a toxic snake, of the date of the next cycle, saying they can't have it after I took the money that was supposed to pay for it back. Some friends think I'm being oversensitive. Carol's on my side, telling me to tell them to go to hell, but I feel so bad about it. What I've done might just damage our 15 years of friendship. Maybe I shouldn't have cancelled it, but I just felt so offended by what she said about me and how she basically mocked my unfortunate circumstances. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Alright, so the title of this one is a little bit cheeky because what Alessia said here is not really a joke, is it? It's actually pretty disgusting. Like, for her to be in the exact same position as you and for her still to say that and be that disparaging about your situation when she knows how hard it is herself and she knows how horrible it would be to be in your spot. Yeah, that's not a joke, that's just horribly insensitive, and I would have done the same thing. $12,000 is an insane amount of money. How grateful are you to even suggest that in the first place? But if someone's going to be treating you like this, no way, I'm having that money back. Am I the jerk for asking my friend to move a picture of him and his wife because it made my wife uncomfortable? Me and my wife, Dahlia, lost our apartment 2 months ago and moved in with mum temporarily. Issues began to arise between Dahlia and mum, and I had to ask my friend, Anthony, to let us move in till I get enough money to rent out. His wife was away visiting family and he agreed, but even there, some issues started to arise. FYI, Dahlia is very shy around Anthony. She grew up in a conservative home, so it's understandable, but sometimes it could be a bit much, I admit that. For example, she freaked out when she accidentally drank from his glass. She also once made a a fuss when he passed by the guest room when she was lying down and the door was open. Thankfully, Anthony was super understanding and we were able to talk some of these issues out. Last night, Dahlia was passing the hall and noticed a framed picture of Anthony and his wife kissing hanging on it. She told me about it and said it made her uncomfortable. She asked if I could speak to Anthony about it, but he didn't take it well. He gave me a look when I spoke to him and said this was bonkers because first of all, his wife put it there, and second of all, the picture holds sentimental meaning to him and his wife, and he argued that it wasn't some explicit picture of them, just a normal wedding kiss. We started arguing, and he said that it wasn't like it was hanging in the living room wall or a perfectly lit room. I asked him to be a little bit more considerate because it's not like I asked him to remove it completely, just move it elsewhere that Dahlia won't reach, or keep it off the wall until we leave. He said he was sorry, but still refused. I explained how Dahlia was feeling, but he said that again, he was sorry but would not move the picture. We argued some more, and he said that it's his house and that I was being pushy and kind of too comfortable to make such a demand and be pushy still. This morning, Dahlia refused to even come out of the room until the picture is moved. Anthony is refusing, which makes it worse. Now I feel like I'm getting stuck between a rock and a hard place. Yes, she might just be overreacting, but I feel this isn't such a big ask for Anthony to decline and turn down. For what it's worth, if it were me, I would go the extra mile to make sure my guests are comfortable. Anthony's been a friend of mine for 10 years. I wouldn't have asked to move in with him if I didn't have such a strong bond with him. He himself constantly talks about all the things and situations I helped him out with, and we are considered brothers. Yeah, great post. Apart from the fact it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever read in my entire life. Great stuff. You say here that it's not a big ask for Anthony to be a little bit more accommodating of you, but how about the fact that he's let you live with him in the first place? Is that not a pretty cool gesture? So what next if Anthony was to take this photo down? You say, by the way, Anthony, I want the master bedroom and also the keys to the front door, and also you're gonna put this house in my name now. Like, come on, this is just ridiculous. Am I the jerk for making my ex a birthday cake, even though his girlfriend told me she had already ordered one? I am an amateur baker, and I like to make cakes for people for their birthdays. My ex doesn't like sweet stuff, but our kids like helping me make a cake for him, so I normally make one for him anyway for their sakes. This year, his girlfriend planned a party for him, and she told me she'd already ordered him a cake, so I didn't need to make one. I told her that was fine, but my daughter kept asking me when we'd make her dad's cake, and was upset when I said we wouldn't, because she assumed I didn't like my ex, and that's why I wouldn't make him one. Since the cake has always been more for the kids than for my ex, I decided to just make him a small one, since it's not like he eats cake anyway, and I don't want my kids to think I dislike their dad. I told his girlfriend beforehand that I was going to make a small cake, and she told me not to, and that I couldn't bring it to the party. I told her I had to bring it to the party, as that's when the kids would give him his gifts. I offered to come early and give it to him before the other guests arrived, and then they could put it away and nobody else would know about my cake. But she didn't agree with me and repeatedly told me not to bring it. I did take it with me in the end, and now she keeps complaining to mutual friends that I did it on purpose to ruin the party, and she's calling me weird for making him a cake after I was told not to. So, am I the jerk? Yeah, one word springs to mind here, fellas, and that is not fellas. Yeah, one word springs to mind here, guys, and that is jealousy. Because you've explicitly said to your ex-husband's girlfriend, this is not for you, you're not doing this. It's because your kids, the kids that you had with your ex-husband, want to do this for their dad. It's got nothing to do with you. So the fact that his new girlfriend is saying, no, don't bring it. Yeah, I mean, if anything, that's just going to be horrible for the kids, not you. Like, pretty explicitly, she is saying that her boyfriend can't have a cake on his birthday from his kids. Think about that. Mental. Am I the jerk for not going to my girlfriend's son's funeral? I am a 28-year-old man, and I've been dating my 30-year-old girlfriend for 2 months. I think we have a good relationship. She has an 11-year-old son. My girlfriend and I were good friends for a few years. We met through mutual friends, and so we hadn't spent time alone together until just 5 months ago. I knew she had a son because she's posted about him on Facebook a few times. He has some sort of liver condition and was awaiting a liver transplant. It's just him and his mum. I don't know much about him, as my girlfriend is very reserved talking about her son. I have a little sister who is 26. I've always been closer to her than other siblings, considering we're only a few years apart. When she was 11, we were fighting at school and she ended up fainting. She had to stay in the hospital for a few days to have some tests done, and she ended up being diagnosed with diabetes, not related to her death. I think it changed the dynamic of our relationship a lot because she was in hospital a lot more than other kids. At the start of September, my girlfriend's son started getting sicker, and it was the first time she ever opened up to me about his health conditions. In early October, my sister got into a fatal accident. It was very sudden, and because she still lives near my parents, they were heartbroken, and they don't have any children apart from my sister and I, so I went to help them. I grew up in Australia, and my sister and family still live there. I live in America currently. For the funeral and to console my mum and dad, I decided to stay there for 10 days to help plan it all. On my second day there, I got a call from my girlfriend. She said her son had passed away during the night. I tried to help her the best I could, even though I was already sad about the death of my sister. She said she wanted the funeral to be done soon and that it would happen on the 6th day of my 10-day trip. My sister's funeral though was on the 8th, and I wasn't going to take 2 flights to go there and then 2 flights back in less than 2 days to go to both. My girlfriend got really upset and said that I didn't care about her son, and I was upset at her too because I just lost my sister. She told me that her son thought of me like a dad, but I'd never met him, so I told her I didn't think of him like a son. She hung up angrily and we haven't spoken since. I'll admit I was harsh telling her, and a grieving mother didn't deserve that. However, I don't think I was wrong to push the idea of me being this kid's dad. All my mutual friends think I'm a jerk for not going and that I should have told her later, but she knows I've never met her son and I wouldn't ditch my sister's funeral to go to her son's. My friends though think I did the right thing and that I wasn't obligated to go to his funeral. I don't know what I should have done. I'm glad I went to my sister's funeral, but I feel bad for how I told my girlfriend, as her son's never had a father figure in his life. Yeah, you're definitely not the jerk there, OP. I mean, what were you going to do? Really? Take 4 flights to go there and back? Like, logistically, it just wasn't possible. So no, of course you're not in the wrong. And yeah, also you have to favour your sister there. She is your sister after all. The only thing that I guess you were slightly jerky about was saying that you didn't see her son as your son, you know? Look, obviously you don't and you gave your reasons for that, but maybe it wasn't the best time to tell a grieving mother that. As you've admitted yourself, that's the only way in which I could see you were slightly in the wrong. But apart from that, no. It's your sister across the other side of the world. There's nothing you can do. I mean, I've got to say overall, that is just a horribly sad story. The fact that both of you had to deal with young deaths in your families like that in the same week is just horrific. I'm so sorry for both of your losses. Am I the jerk for taking my daughter's phone away? I have a daughter who recently turned 11. She has a different dad from the rest of my children. Whenever one of my kids turns 12, I buy them their first phone, which is usually a cheap one because I don't think a kid needs an expensive phone. Now she's been complaining recently and asking me to buy her a phone because all her friends have one. I told her she has to wait like her siblings did. So imagine my surprise when today she came home from her dad's and had a phone with her. And not just the cheap one. I don't know much about phones, but it looked expensive. I was furious, so I took her phone away and told her she is not getting it back until she turns 12. She started to cry and called her dad, who called me a jerk for taking the phone away. I told him he had no right to buy that for her and she should have got a cheap phone at her 12th birthday like the rest of her siblings. Wow, another jerk. I didn't think we were going to see one again in today's episode, but there we go, guys. Am I the jerk? Yes. What you're really saying here is that your daughter's dad cannot have his own rules and cannot buy gifts for his children without going through you first, even though it's pretty clear you're not still together. Like what? Every time he wants to do something with your kids, he has to ask you? Or every time he wants to give something to them, he has to ask your permission? No. I get it. You clearly got your own rules and it's annoying for you that your ex is not following them. But I mean, you're not together anymore. He can do what he wants. And by you taking your daughter's phone away, that's punishing her for something that your ex has done. How is that fair? Am I the jerk? My roommate called me a leech. The auto-generated Reddit username is pretty fitting because I feel miserable. So this person's username is miserablehat6390. Wow, kind of sad. I used to work a really stressful job with hard hours and terrible co-workers. I was also supplementing my income by renting out the 3rd bedroom in my house. The other spare was a guest room / storage. She paid and pays me $700 every month, and we used to split the utilities in half. Things got really bad at work and I wanted to leave. I decided to clean out the guest room and rent it out. I told my roommate and she was unhappy because she didn't want to share a bathroom. I pointed out that her share of the utilities would go down, but she didn't really care about that. Anyway, I rented out the room. Not long after, I quit my job. So my mortgage is $1,500 a month. So right now, I'm paying about $100 a month, plus the rent from both girls and living off of my savings while I look for a job. My roommate noticed I'm not going into work anymore. I told her I left that job and I'm looking for a new one. She said, "So now you're a professional homeowner, basically." I disagreed with that assessment. She said that I'm leeching off of her and the other girl because I don't want to work. But I do want to work. It's just that I need to find a new job. And since people need cheap places to stay, renting out these rooms allows me to keep paying my mortgage while I look. My roommate says I'm taking advantage of her, but she chose to move in here. I don't consider myself to be a leech, but she thinks I'm a selfish jerk. So, am I? You're not a selfish jerk, pal. You're actually just a switched on geezer. Like, come on, you're paying your mortgage back for $100 a month. That's genius. That's what everyone would want to do in an ideal situation. I mean, you've literally said it right there. They're the ones that are willing to pay for you and help you out with your mortgage. You are giving up rooms to them, obviously, but they're the ones that are choosing to do it. Like, why are you leeching that? It's weird. And again, you're giving them a great rate. You say you're giving them a cheap rate in the area, so they should be thankful that they're getting a good price. Doesn't matter where the money's going. But I mean, you're doing a good thing by using their money to pay back the mortgage on the house that you own. I don't understand. If I was in your spot, I would do exactly the same thing. I mean, honestly, I wish I was in your spot. You guys know that I live in London. Obviously, house prices are very high here. If I had the money, I would definitely buy a gaff and rent it out to my mates or just random housemates. Therefore, they would be paying the majority of my mortgage for me. It's just logical. It makes economic sense. No, you're not a leech. You're just an entrepreneur, my friend.